Thank you. We've got all these young people in the audience, and I'm sure that they're wondering how folks on this panel got to where they are. I'm going to turn to you, Janine, who's Deputy Assistant Secretary Assistant Administrator at USAID. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and career trajectory? How did you get to where you are? What are some of the steps that our young people here can perhaps follow?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Arwood, and good morning, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here. I think when I was asked to think about my own history, I was thinking how much we have in common. So I was raised by my grandmother, who's one of 13 children, and my grandfather, who's one of 11. Don't let African Americans tell you that we don't have big families. And they left the rural South of the US to find opportunity in the North, just as so many families moved to more urban areas to find that economic opportunity. The brothers and sisters all came from the South, got married, and moved next door, as we like to say. So I grew up surrounded by family and surrounded by community. And that meant that there was responsibilities placed on us, as well as expectations. And for me, as a child, I was very good at mathematics. And in those days, probably still now, young Black girl, good at math, immediately you're pushed into mathematics and engineering. So I got to benefit from all of the programs. It created opportunities, scholarships for me. But the truth was, it wasn't my passion. It was a skill, but it wasn't my passion. But that education opened doors. So my first trip overseas was as a mathematics teacher in 1997. I got to go to Tanzania to teach math. And while I was there, teaching math is when I realized that my real heart was for development. And that's where I made that transition. My first career, mathematics, engineering, but I realized that I really wanted to solve bigger problems. And that was how I got into the development sector and was able later to join the Foreign Service and have since 1997 off and on lived in Africa. My children, this is their first time living in the US. We just moved back in August. So they're experiencing the US for the first time. But the point I'd just like to make is there are the skills that you have, and there's the passion that you feel. And I know in this room, there's so many powerful young people who have figured out how to combine the two. And that is what I would just continue to encourage you to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Today is all focused on the connections between Africa and the diaspora. And I think there's no better place than with thinking about this than HBCUs. So I'd like to turn to Dr. Trent and ask, what role do HBCUs play in equipping students with the knowledge and experiences needed for the future workforce?
Well, that's a loaded question. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate this opportunity. I would say that HBCUs, let me just start by just saying that the first HBCU was established in 1837. That was 28 years prior to slavery ending. And all of these HBCUs, and after the Civil War, hundreds and hundreds of HBCUs sprouted up around the South. All of these HBCUs were established to educate former slaves and their descendants. And so our HBCUs have been around for centuries now. And we have been educating African Americans, mostly African Americans, but we've been educating a lot of other people, a lot of other races and ethnicities too. I would say that when you look at the product of an HBCU, we've been schools that have been under-resourced, undervalued for a long time, yet we produce leaders. We produce right now today, 85% of the federal judges today started at an HBCU. 85% of Black PhDs started at an HBCU. 40% of STEM workers started at an HBCU. Over 50% of our engineers, teachers started at an HBCU. 75% of our dentists and medical doctors started at an HBCU. And last but not least, 100% of our Black and female vice presidents started. So we create leaders. And we create leaders in areas in which are significant to today's economy. And so when you ask me what is the role we play, we create leaders. A part of our education at these schools is not, we don't opt into leadership courses. It is embedded within each one of across our curriculum. So each course you have, you're expected to be a leader. And that is what is drilled into you. Not only that, service is a big part of who we are when we come out. And so when you talk about what do we do to educate the next generation, we create leaders.
I think that is a very good start. We're going to have another round of questions, and then we're going to dig in a little deeper, but I'm inspired for sure. I want to turn to Dr. Najib right now and take it a little more personal again and ask, how did you utilize your experience as a STEM professional and a member of the African diaspora to connect back to Africa and advance STEM on the continent?
Thank you, Dr. Yarwood. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Moroccan American, and if you didn't know, Morocco just made it to the semifinal of the first African country to do so. So we are proudly, viscerally, and unapologetically African. That's an answer to the previous panelist. Now, that's out of the way. I came to the US in search of knowledge. I wanted to become an aerospace engineer, and there was no training in space engineering or aerospace engineering in Morocco. So this is why I left my home country, and I came to pursue a PhD here in the US at University of Michigan. And in the process, I realized that if I wanted to go home, I would not have a job, because at the time, there wasn't a space industry that was developed enough to absorb new graduates like me. So just like my co-panelists, my passion shifted from space engineering to science policy. Why there isn't a research ecosystem to absorb new graduates who want to go back home and build the capacity in their countries. I know we talk about climate change, we talk about biodiversity, agriculture in Africa, water scarcity. Those are important issues. But research excellence in cutting-edge research topics are not the monopoly of the global north. Africa can also, they have the human capital to make strides in artificial intelligence, in material science, in other topics. So after I graduated, I came to the National Academy of Sciences, where I work right now. And the National Academies provide evidence-based advice to the US government on all matters related to science, engineering, and medicine. And we developed new programs at a sophisticated high level to engage with African researchers and African institutions, build capacity, but also learn. There are programs that are based on intellectual reciprocity, that are fully bidirectional. And they involve the diaspora. The diaspora showed up. In fact, it was bottom up. It was driven by the diaspora who came to us and they said, you have programs with Germany, with Japan, with China. Why not with Africa? We're here. We want to help. We want to learn. We want to engage. And I think this is where the strength of the diaspora comes from, is that they are willing to go the extra mile, that they have the cultural competency to engage, and they are a strength. We talk a lot about brain drain, but now we are also at a level of brain circulation, because the diaspora is willing to go back and engage and help lift up the continent. And just closing back where I started, the most successful team at the World Cup, Morocco, has the highest number of foreign-born players. And there is a reason for that. So I think there is strength there. It's a resource, it's an opportunity to tap, not just in football/soccer, but also in STEM. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to turn back to Dr. Gaya